Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Phil, heavyweight champion of the world.
I'm Phil. I'm very Phil.
What's that?
Heavyweight champions.
Oleksandr Usyk and Daniel Dubois are set to meet once again on the 19th of July, this time for the undisputed heavyweight title at Wembley Stadium. The two have of course met before, with Usyk stopping Dubois in the 9th round. However, if anyone believes that this will be an easy fight for Usyk, they are simply wrong. Since their first meeting, a lot has happened. Usyk for his part has continued to battle against the odds, defeating the giant Tyson Fury back to back, all whilst representing his war-torn nation with honour and being a role model for younger generations. For Dubois, the comeback has been remarkable, from being labelled as a quitter to gradually developing into a matured warrior over 3 difficult fights. Not only has Daniel developed his mental resilience, he has developed his belief in his own physical fitness, and the two go hand in hand. We saw this with his fight versus Jarrell Miller, when he had to come through real adversity before stopping the previously unbeaten American in the final round. Next up was Filip Hrgović, who was also unbeaten. Once again, Dubois weathered an early storm before stopping his opponent. But of course his crowning moment came against Anthony Joshua at Wembley Stadium last year. Joshua was a sizable favourite going in, having also been in great form, but it was the younger Lion who would dominate from start to finish, never allowing AJ to grow into the fight before finishing the demolition in the 5th. Despite so much having changed since the first fight, it is still very relevant. As with any fight, the jab was a key factor. Usyk is constantly probing with his jab, which can make opponents tentative and prevent them from getting into their own rhythm. As seen here where Usyk feints with his lead hand as he moves in, opening up a gap to land the jab and follow up with a rear hand to the body. Again, Usyk just probes with the lead hand. He's not looking to land a shot, but simply to act as a visual distraction to hide his real intention. Dubois gets used to the lead hand being thrown straight, so Usyk changes the angle of his shot to a lead uppercut, clearly catching Dubois by surprise and again creating a gap for him to land the rear hand. A further strength of Usyk, particularly in comparison to Dubois, is his head movement. Usyk is constantly taking his head off the centre line whilst remaining in his high guard. This is not purely defensive, however, as it allows him to set up counter punches. This constant physical and mental pressure that Usyk puts on his opponents almost always tells by the championship rounds. Again, Usyk lands the double jab, followed by the rear hand. Not the hardest single shots, but I believe that Dubois was simply exhausted and overwhelmed by this point, as he takes a knee. Dubois is no doubt more resilient now, but who's to say that Usyk can't drag him into these deep waters again? That's not to say that Dubois didn't have his moments during the fight. Here he slipped inside of Usyk's jab in order to set up a straight right hand to the body. Usyk doubles over in pain, and Dubois returns to the body once again. As Usyk is forced back onto the ropes, Dubois really loads up with a 3rd shot to the body. However, perhaps the most notable thing about this sequence is Usyk's reaction. Although he looks momentarily hurt, he has such grit and determination that he never shows it for long, and his footwork is so excellent that he simply isn't there to follow up. The same happened versus Joshua and versus Fury. You think for a second that you've got him hurt, but he's so elusive that he's out of range again before long. This is reflected in the punch stats for all of Usyk's fights. In the 9 rounds of Usyk versus Dubois 1, Usyk outlanded Dubois 88-47 and threw 359 punches compared to Dubois' 290. But the Joshua and Fury fights are particularly interesting. Usyk forces you to throw, setting a pace that opponents can't keep up with before capitalising in the later rounds. In their first fight, Joshua threw 641 punches compared to Usyk's 529, but was outlanded 148-123. Therefore, Joshua looked to decrease output and increase accuracy of big impactful shots in the rematch, which he did, landing 124 out of 492 punches. However, Usyk was unstoppable, throwing an unbelievable 712 punches, landing 170. It was a similar story for Tyson Fury. He outthrew Usyk in the first fight, attempting 496 compared to 407 punches, but again was less accurate, landing 157 compared to Usyk's 170. Again, the rematch was very similar, with Fury connecting with 144 out of 509 punches compared to Usyk's 179 out of 423. As mentioned, a lot has changed since the first fight. Usyk is now 38 years old and Dubois is in his physical prime at 10 years Usyk's junior. Usyk has already stated that he believes that he only has 2 fights left in professional boxing, and Dubois will be much improved from the first fight. If he can assert his authority from the outset, like he did versus Anthony Joshua, he will almost certainly give Usyk problems. Despite all this, I find it really difficult to bet against Usyk. Firstly, he relies on skill more than he does athleticism, minimising the effects of ageing compared to a Mike Tyson or a Roy Jones Jr., for example. More importantly, he simply manages to find a way to win. No matter the style, no matter the difficulty, he finds a way. Either way, it's set to be a tremendous night at Wembley Stadium,